All right, we are getting started here. Hello to all folks who are joining us today for this workshop from the University of Michigan-Dearborn CAPS, Counseling and Psychological Services. My name is Joanna Rensdell. I'm a clinical social worker and one of the staff clinicians with CAPS.
And I am also a staff clinician. I am a counselor. My name is Jessica Ryder.
And today, Jessica and I will be talking with you about virtual dating and dating at a distance. This will be kind of focused on folks who are already in a relationship, but I think that this is beneficial whether you're single and looking for a relationship or in a relationship that is affected by distance, right? And even if you're not in a long distance relationship right now, you might be in the future. So it could be good information to just have. Please feel free to type any questions in the chat as we go through. We'll be happy to answer them. I also do want to take just one moment to speak on just the fact that we are in June 2020. A lot has been happening in our world. Racial justice is at the forefront of hopefully most of our minds. And I just want to really just say that we here at CAPS are doing our work right now to kind of process our own internal work around internalized systems of oppression, figuring out ways to advocate, donate, and lend our support to the cause fighting for anti-racist work, and for all folks of color, especially Black people who are affected by this. We stand with you, and we're here to learn and support you in any way we can.
Absolutely. And I'll just echo what Joanna said, that each of us individually is doing our own inner work to bring consciousness and responsibility to this topic, and then doing what we can externally to support.
Very much so, because it doesn't matter, who you are or how educated you are or where you grew up. Every person in this society, we all have a fabric of oppression that's been woven into us because we're a part of this society. So it's really important that we all do our work right now and educate ourselves. And I just felt like before we even talk about this topic, it wouldn't feel right to not at least name that. So
thank you.
Let's get started with our topic today, which is virtual dating and dating at a distance. So we're going to be talking about this from a few different perspectives. We're going to first talk about some practical ideas and kind of methods you can use to foster connection in a long distance relationship. We're going to talk about the importance of communication and how that's even more important in a long distance relationship. We'll talk about knowing yourself as well as knowing your partner and how that really shows up as important when you're dating at a distance. We're going to talk about balance and how to balance different aspects of needs for yourself and for your partner. And then we'll give you guys some resources at the end, and have a few words on kind of safety and making sure you're safe in your relationship. So let's get started with our first portion, which is how to kind of foster connection in a long distance relationship.
Yeah, and maybe to put all of that, particularly this first topic you're bringing up, Joanna, in the context of maybe looking at distance relating as an opportunity. How can you make the most of it? Of course, it's not what anybody wishes on themselves, but there's potential in it, and there's potential for growth that might not have been there under so-called normal circumstances.
Absolutely. And one of the things that Jessica shared with me actually before we even got started were a couple of articles that I'm going to be posting on the chat, and we're also going to publicize later. But one of the articles was kind of tips and tricks for maintaining the health of your relationship in distance. And what I really liked about it was not just relying on technology. That's something I hadn't really thought of before. But yeah, it's there are physical elements that you could integrate even if you're not physically together, if you have gifts or photos that you could put around your living space. And then the other idea was sending each other care packages. I thought that was super cute, you know, sending each other gifts to let you know they're thinking about them. So
Just
there are
maybe to
ways.
remember, sorry, just maybe to remember that there is a centuries old history of people maintaining relationship by letter. So in other words, it can be done. And that there is something, no matter how often you're texting or Zooming or whatever, there is something wonderful about just receiving a physical piece of mail.
Yeah, so it's like this person pulled out this piece of paper and wrote it down, and then they put it in an envelope, and now I'm holding that envelope. It's just a little bit more romantic. I like it.
Of course, it's not real romantic to be wiping down your envelopes with with
Oh, with
sterilizer, but
Clorox?
that's just part of the reality we're living in.
Well, safety is sexy too. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Okay, so we also kind of looked at some virtual dating ideas. Did you have any ideas you wanted to start with for how, like, if you're in a relationship, long distance, what can you do to kind of
Sure.
have that quality time?
One of the suggestions I came across that I just loved was going to a museum. So many of the great museums are offering virtual tours now. You could go to a museum together, the Metropolitan Museum in New York, and the museums that you wouldn't otherwise have access to because we're in Michigan and the Met is in New York. You can go there now, but also more locally, for example, the Detroit Institute of Art I'm trying to copy a link here, Detroit Institute of Art in Detroit, and the very apropos right now would be the Museum of African American History in Detroit. I'm trying to find,
Oh,
how do I
I've
get
been
into
there.
the chat?
It's wonderful.
How do I put this in the chat? There it is. There it is.
You
Okay.
got it?
Yeah, so here's a link, for
Make
example,
sure you
to,
put all panelists and attendees when you send it.
okay, all panelists and attendees. Thank you for that reminder. Right. So there's the Wright Museum of African American History in downtown Detroit. They have some really excellent looking virtual offerings right now. If you decided to watch something at the same time while you're maybe while you're on the phone together, it could be very could really enrich your conversation with your partner.
I love that. Yeah, the museum idea is really cool. You could also use, one of my favorite things to do is go see live music, and now musicians are offering live stream concerts on social media and Instagram. That could be a cool one too, is like tune into a concert together. Yeah, I think being able to just physically know that you guys are watching the same thing, or
Yeah.
video chatting while you're watching something can be like a cool way to spend quality time.
Another suggestion we came across that Joanna and I both were tickled by is picking a recipe, and you both prepare that same recipe at the same time and share notes, and then you're eating it sort of together. But it's a way of sharing a mutual experience.
Yes, cooking together is so much fun, and just being able to kind of like cook something new together but separate, and then eat together. I think that was a really cute idea and very creative. So yeah, if you're tuning in, feel free to send in the chat. What are some things that maybe you've tried for virtual dates that have been fun for you? Anything you guys have that you'd like to share with the group that would be a good idea, or something you've enjoyed? Feel free to get in the conversation. Yeah, so virtual, I mean, really making time for that, I think, is so important, because
and being creative.
Right, be creative with it. Don't be afraid to kind of try new things, because that kind of adds that excitement and spice to a relationship. So shall we talk about communication?
Let's do. That's the biggie.
Communication, it's huge, right? Um, One of the videos that we'll be sending you later was talking about how long distance relationships can be a gift. And the reason for that is that when the physical element is taken away, the other elements of the relationship are forced to get stronger, right? And one of those elements is, how do you really communicate, and how do you kind of foster connection when you're mostly just talking, right?
Yeah.
So how does communication play into a long distance relationship?
And you may be a person who's not used to expressing your needs and your wants verbally, or expressing your emotions. And this can be something that that kind of forces that, that it puts you in a position where you really have to. And that can be a very, very healthy thing, because any relationship, in order to grow and deepen and get stronger and evolve and last, needs good, solid channels of communication.
Right, absolutely. And part of communication is being open about your emotions, right? Which is hard for all of us because it's vulnerable and it's, exposing. And it also helps that person get to know us better and to support us. So when you're having trouble with your long distance situation, when you're, having a struggle with that, being able to convey that to your partner, I think is super important. And just knowing how to have those conversations that can be tough, but also rewarding because they can help you get closer.
And the distance, and this word that's being thrown around now, asynchronous, not doing something at exactly the same time, that aspect of the distancing that we're doing now can actually be very helpful for some of us who are less comfortable with expressing our feelings, and tend to sort of freeze up, if the conversation starts to go a little deeper, because it can give you time to just relax and drop in and feel, okay, what am I really feeling, and what do I really want to say here? And then, in your own time, come out and respond via text, whether that's email or texting or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. And once you've taken that time to drop in and really assess what's going on within you, I think that's a really good opportunity to express that in a personal way. And what I mean by that is avoiding blaming statements, avoiding shaming statements. So I think the I statement goes a long way. Most of us probably know what an I statement is, right? I
Yeah,
feel this, versus like, you did this, or you make me feel this. That can sound very accusatory and usually elicits defensiveness. So when you
and
say, I'm feeling this, I'm experiencing this, right?
but it's easy to trick ourselves. I feel that you were being really dishonest.
Still a
Sounds
you
like an I.
statement. That's still a
Sounds like
you
an I
statement.
statement, but
Mm-hmm.
I felt uncomfortable when you said that. I felt uncertain whether I was hearing the truth or not. That's what's going on for me, right? And that leaves space for the other person to look, oh, okay, what was going on for me?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing shuts down a conversation quicker than that finger pointed outward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You want to be able to feel connected and give that person opportunity to support you. One little kind of formula I've heard is, I feel, I need, can you? So maybe you could use something like that. Like, I'm feeling really disconnected from you. I need us to make more time to talk to each other. Can you and I figure out like a time that we can check in with each other at least twice a week while we're apart? That could be one example.
And that's a great suggestion, to have a regular time or times during the week when you know that you'll have time to sit together and communicate.
Mm-hmm.
And, if your partner's not available for that, and that's something you really need, well, then maybe you're finding out something about the appropriateness of this connection,
Absolutely.
but you do need to express that need and give your partner, give the other person a chance to respond, and see what the response is. And there's a difference between expressing, this is what I need, this is a legitimate need of mine, and expecting the other person and putting it out as a demand, that's not gonna go so well.
Right. I think that's a really good segue to talk about the piece of knowing yourself and also really figuring out and knowing your partner, for this idea of insight as such an important component to a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you really can understand yourself and your triggers and your needs.
Oh, Joanna, we just lost you.
And you can.
Oh, there you.
Am I still here?
Now I'm hearing you now. Yep.
Okay. Thank you for letting me know. Yeah, internet's been kind of off all day for people.
Yeah.
So, but what I was saying is how important it is to know yourself and to know your partner. And I actually think this could be a really fun way to use time apart, is do some like self-assessment together. Jessica and I were talking about a few different self-assessment tools that you can find different versions of online. Jessica, do you want to speak to some of the ones that you like?
Sure. We were talking about a personality assessment called the Myers-Briggs assessment. Maybe while you're talking next, Joanna, I'll come up with a link to put in the chat. I didn't have prepare one, but it's a very, very well known and quite effective lengthy questionnaire that asks you about how you act and respond and your preferences in various different kinds of situations. And it comes up with 16 different personality types. And as you begin to read more about these types, it's there. If you get it right, you know, if the assessment is accurate, you read these assessments and you begin to recognize things about yourself. Oh yeah, I am like that. I thought everybody was like that, but then that's unique to me. Okay. And then, you know, if your partner's into exploring that way with you, then you find out they find out their type, and you look to see how do those types oh, that's why we're bumping heads there. Okay, that helps me to take it less personally. Oh yeah, I can see that we really click on this level, right? Yeah. And it just it helps to get to know yourself better and potentially to get to know your partner better.
Right, and it helps you kind of not take things personally, I think,
Exactly.
when you know your partner. So for example, let's say the test reveals that you are an extroverted feeling type. That's just two of the domains. So extroverted meaning you draw energy from like social interaction, being around people, physically being around people, and then you're more emotionally driven rather than logical in general. And then maybe your partner is more of an introverted thinking type. So they're more a little bit reserved. They need time to regenerate. They're a bit more logical. They like to think things out. They're not as in tune with their feelings, right? So maybe that person doesn't like ask you how your day is every day or really initiate a lot of time to spend together.
Because of you being the way you are, you interpret that as meaning Exactly. They don't care, but
maybe that's just, you just have different needs in a relationship for quality time and how you find connection with each other. So being able to first not take it personally and be like, oh, well, Steve is just an introverted thinking type. So now I understand that he doesn't have the same necessary like intuitive needs. So for me, I can say, you know, this is something that I really value in a relationship. And then I can also kind of give and take and say, I can also respect that you need some time to yourself. And that doesn't mean you don't like me. That doesn't mean you don't value the relationship. It's just your needs are different than mine.
Yeah. And another one that you brought up yesterday is the 5 love languages. Mm-hmm. I'll put that also here. By the way, in the chat, I have put a link to the Myers-Briggs, the official Myers-Briggs.
Yeah.
But you can also find lots of free abbreviated versions of it that'll give you sort of a quick overview.
Right. If you Google MBTI, thousands of quizzes, mostly free, will pop up. So you can definitely take a few. Yeah, so the 5 love languages, there's also free versions of this available online. So the idea of the 5 love languages is, how do I receive love, or what's the way that I prefer to feel or receive love?
Or
And
what helps me to recognize that someone loves
yeah,
me?
that's a good way of putting it. Exactly. So the 5 love languages, and personally, I kind of like all of them, but we usually have some that are more than others, right?
Yeah.
So there's quality time, and that means time you're actually spending together, communicating, phones down, quality time, right? You need that time. Physical touch, right? You're affectionate, you're cuddly, maybe sensual. That's kind of that domain. Gifts, receiving thoughtful gifts, giving thoughtful gifts that really like speak to that person knowing you and knowing what you like. Bringing flowers or candy. What were the other? Oh, acts of service. So somebody just doing nice things for you. You know, my partner came and installed a window unit air conditioner for me the other day, and that was like made my world and just made me feel so loved. So I don't
Yes.
have to die in my apartment. And then the last one I think is words of affirmation. So somebody just
Yes.
telling you, I love you, I appreciate
Yes.
you, this is something I like about you.
Yeah.
Somebody verbalizing things.
Yeah.
And we all kind of have maybe different preferences. So finding out what's yours and what's your partner's, and how do you, if your partner is acts of service, now you know, well, I'm gonna go mow his lawn, or I'm gonna go cook him breakfast. And then if yours are words of affirmation, he or she can know, or they could know, you know, I need to text my partner and just tell them how much I'm thinking about them, or
Right.
that I like them, or all those things.
And it can be very helpful if you recognize, for example, that your love language is words of affirmation, and you want to hear somebody saying, I love you, I appreciate you so much. And so that's the way you respond to your partner. But your partner actually, that doesn't really get through, because what they need is for you to come put in the air conditioner, for example. So if you can begin to recognize how each other receives love, it can help to open up those lines of communication.
Right, because otherwise you might be missing something that your partner's trying to communicate with you. Maybe your partner's not always the most like lovey-dovey, affectionate person with you. Um, but for some people, physical touch isn't a big thing, and they
It's
don't
true.
necessarily think like I have to go hug that person all the time, or I need to cuddle that person. And
Yeah.
they're saying, I took out your trash for you. I got you this new like house plant. That was my way of telling you how much I love you, right? So
Yeah.
now you know, right? And
Yeah.
for physical touch, this is big, right? If yours is physical touch, what do you do about that in a long distance relationship?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something that you need to explore with your partner. So maybe this is a good time to talk about how supportive counseling can be,
Yes. Yes.
both individually, for you individually, to explore what's coming up for you in your relationship, and at CAPS, at counseling at UM-Dearborn, we do offer individual counseling, and we are available for counseling virtually. Not exactly on Zoom, but on Blue Jeans, similar format, which most of you are probably familiar with by now. But what you may not know is that we also do offer couples counseling. So as long as one of or the other of the partners is enrolled as a student, you are eligible to come for couples counseling. Currently, I have a client that is a couple. One is enrolled and one is not. And we're seeing each other online, and it's been a very, very fruitful experience for everyone, I think.
Mhm.
So I'll just put that
Yeah.
out there, and also to kind of take the stigma off that it doesn't, coming for couples counseling does not, you don't have to be having a big problem in order to seek counseling, whether as an individual or as a couple. And I was sharing with Joanna yesterday when we were talking this over, in her book, which she titles Becoming. Michelle Obama talked about a time earlier on in their marriage when they went for couples counseling. And a lot of people were just so shocked to hear that, because the Obamas have, I think, one of the, at least publicly, one of the happiest, most strongest, and most stable partnerships that we see in the world these days. And so everybody was like, "Oh my God, you had so much trouble. You went for couples counseling." She said, "No, it's not that we were having trouble. It's that we wanted to keep growing. We wanted to strengthen this relationship." And I think that really went a long way to take away some of the stigma.
Yeah. I think making that decision to go for counseling as a couple bodes to the strength of your relationship, right? Because that shows that you're committed. You care about this person. You want to make it work. Even if you are having trouble, right? But you really care about that person and you want to get on the same page, making that effort and learning those skills that aren't necessarily intuitive, aren't necessarily taught to all of us, especially we all grew up in very different families and saw different relationships growing up. So
Yeah,
learning some ways to kind of bridge some gaps can be really helpful.
And we may not have seen models of the kind of relationship we really want to have.
Exactly. Yeah, many of us did not. Yeah. So very important to note that. And yes, we here at CAPS are happy to provide that. If any of y'all are out there, like, we could benefit from some couples counseling. So there were a couple of other personality tests I just wanted to briefly mention. If you're interested in like learning about yourself, about your partner, there's the Enneagram test. I've heard mixed reviews. I took one and I found it to be cool. I definitely feel like I waver between two different numbers on it, but it was very interesting to know about myself, and it could be a cool thing for you guys to take together. Again, there are free versions, there are versions that are paid, so that could be a fun one as well. So we're also wanting to talk about how to find balance in a difficult, situation in a relationship, which could be involved with a long distance relationship, right? So we all have different needs, and our relationship has different needs that can feel like opposites. So I wanted to talk about how we can kind of be both and with seeming opposite needs, right? One example, I think we all in a relationship, I'm not going to say all, many of us in a relationship really value spontaneity and surprise and, that spark, that interest, that fun element. And we also benefit from routine and structure, right? So how can you in your relationship from a distance make time and make space for both spontaneity and routine? Jessica, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, that's a great example, I think, because spontaneity and surprise is really only most effective when there is an established structure and routine. And all of a sudden you pop out of that routine.
Yeah, they're not opposites, they feed into each other, right?
Exactly. They balance each other. And I think that's just what you're talking about.
Right. So if every Saturday night you have a Zoom date with your partner, and that's your structured time together, maybe also sending spontaneous texts or calling them one night out of the blue and just being like, I was thinking about you, I wanted to talk to you. Or that night being like, I just had this fun idea, let's cook a meal together, I just found a recipe, having room for both. The other part of relationships that I think is important to talk about is our need for autonomy, independence, and our own self-development, and our need for connection, reciprocity, and doing things together, right? That can be a hard one.
Yeah. So maybe this is a good moment for me to talk about how I see relationship, as I was describing to you yesterday, Joanna. I see relationship really as the great gift of relationship is as an avenue or a vehicle for growth, for personal growth, and to be supporting another's growth. So, and as I see it, that's really the purpose of relationship, is to help us to grow and evolve as human beings. And if that's happening, it won't always be easy. You know, relationships are supposed to bring stuff up. That doesn't necessarily mean there's something wrong with your relationship if it brings up issues to look at. That's your relationship doing its job, and then that's, you know, how you engage that will determine whether it's really a healthy relationship or not so much. I've forgotten where I was going with this. Oh, yes. Yeah, but I think so many of us have fallen into the trap of thinking that a relationship is supposed to make me happy, that I'm looking outside myself for that relationship to fill something that's missing in me. And in my personal experience and in watching lots of other people go through this, that's a recipe for disaster. So you really need to look to, what do I want this relationship for? And if you're feeling an emptiness or a need, to be looking at that within yourself and tending to that, not only through the relationship, but also within yourself.
Yes. So let's say, I don't know if other people think of this when they hear this, but sometimes when folks have said, like, you need to love yourself and not need a partner, not look for happiness in a relationship, what does that really mean? Does that mean that if I have to get to a place where I don't even want a relationship and then I'll get it? Or does that mean I have to just be completely 100% happy on my own, and that I
Does it mean
can't
I
have
have to
that
be all
desire? I
alone all
can't
the
have,
time?
right, do I have to be alone? What if I've always wanted to, like, have a long-term commitment, have a partner, get married? Is that a bad thing to desire that? Like, how do you respond to that question?
I think it goes back to your original, the original topic that you put out. It's both. You can have, and not only can you have both, but you deserve to have both. Yes, you need to work on yourself. You need to resolve issues within yourself. And yeah, you get to have the relationship that is rewarding and satisfying for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you're not giving up the desire for a relationship, you're giving up the dependence on one.
Exactly.
You know, you're not depending on somebody else to make you happy. You are able to be kind to yourself, nourish yourself. You have hobbies, skills, people outside of your relationship that enrich your life. And you have things that you do together, and you're able to ask for help from your partner, and you're able to acknowledge the fact that you really want a partner. You know, like, I love myself and this is something I really want. You know, you can have both. Yeah, I think that's a really important point to drive home. You can't look for happiness in someone, but that person can enhance the happiness that you already have.
Absolutely. Or help
Another
you to
great
find
reason
it
to go to
within yourself.
counseling. If you're like, hey, I'm really feeling like I need a relationship, or I can't be happy, talk to one of us. We will help you on that journey. We would be honored to
absolutely.
Also, I don't know if this is part of the structure of what we were going to talk about, but I was just thinking about astrology because Jessica and I are both, we both just kind of interested in it and talking about, is that something you can think about in the, like, self-knowledge piece? But I was just thinking about that for myself because my rising sign is Libra, and Libras are very, like, balance-oriented people, and we also tend to really value partnership. It's like a huge pinnacle of our values. So I've also thought about that in my own journey of, like, recognizing it's okay that that's something I really, really want, you know, from my life. And I also really, it's important for me to value, like, being kind to myself and making myself happy, you know.
Yeah.
So I feel like learning about astrology has helped me kind of be like, oh, that's interesting to think about myself in that way. Of course, it's
I
not
think
scientific. I'm not
it,
like
I think
preaching it to you, but
any modality that helps you to explore yourself more and that you enjoy, that feels like a fit for you, go for it.
oh my gosh, it's so much fun. You can go on Google and just look up like astrological chart um, calculator, and if you have your time and place of birth, um, you can see your whole chart, and it's just really interesting what it tells you about yourself. So I encourage people to do it if you're interested. Yeah.
I think it's time to talk a little about sex.
Oh yeah, let's do it. Take it away, Jessica.
Well, particularly if your love language is physical touch. Whoa, this is a rough time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that, the closer and the more intimate you become by distance, the more there's the inclination.
Oh, we lost your sound for a second.
Ah,
Oh, you're back. Okay.
I'm back. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was saying that the deeper and more intimate your relationship becomes, and the stronger the sexual attraction is, to try to get physical intimacy happening via remote. Joanna and I are really both inclined to suggest that you not transmit electronic still photographs, send them out, post them anywhere, or even actually send them. Because the difficulty is that we never know. Once it's out there forever. And once it leaves your screen, you have no control over what happens to it next. And you may feel that you trust this partner now, but you could be very surprised down the road. We've all heard some very, very painful stories about that. And even if the person that you're sending it to is trustworthy, people can be hacked, and you don't know who might steal that person's device. We're inclined to say maybe not so much. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you have an end-to-end encrypted, secured connection, okay, maybe live. That might be a way. But as far as do you feel I'm on the right track here, Joanna?
Yeah, totally. I agree with everything that you're saying. It's just that there are people who have had really horrific things happen to them,
yeah,
based on, just digital images being sent around or given to the wrong person, or even, people sneak into each other's phones. And how do you really, even if you trust your partner, it's not a guarantee.
Yeah, so we're not necessarily saying your partner can't be trusted. Maybe your partner can be trusted, but neither of you has full control over what happens to those images.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and
be
I
wise.
think there's all sorts of, there are some creative things you can do, like, exploring your sexuality from a long distance relationship. There are resources, I'm sure, are a wealth of resources online about that too. So definitely we're honoring that as a need for many people, also honoring it as not a need for many people. Some people are asexual or aromantic, and this doesn't apply to them. But, just be safe about it, right? And also on safety, I just wanted to make a word about recognizing toxicity in relationships, and abuse even can happen in a long distance relationship. If you feel like your partner is controlling you, or, manipulating, blackmailing you, all sorts of stuff like that can happen even from a distance. Emotional abuse is real, and the effects can be just as devastating. So we want to encourage you to reach out to our confidential counseling services, reach out to support agencies in your community, and that it's always okay to ask for help. And we're happy at CAPS to help you find that help if you don't know where to start. And provide that confidential
If
service.
something doesn't feel right, tell someone and reach out for support. I think also to come back to the communication piece that is so important, that it's very important to communicate what your expectations are, particularly in any relationship, but particularly when you're not seeing each other in person, because it's easy to kind of get out of touch. Communicate what are your expectations. For example, for you, being in a relationship might mean that you're exclusive and that you don't flirt with other people. You don't have intimate. I don't know whether to say sexual, because we're just talking about computers here. But you don't have intimate connection with other partners. That might be obvious to you, but the other person may not be on the same page. So I think it's really important to have an upfront and honest conversation about what are your expectations, what are your needs, and also be careful. You want to find out where the other person is at, and if you really want to find out where they're at, you need to ask open questions. So let me give you an example. If I say to Joanna, well, you're not seeing other people, are you? There's only one right answer. What's she going to say? Right?
Right. Versus like,
of course not.
Versus like, how do you feel about exclusivity while we're in a long distance relationship? I know what my preferences are. I'd be curious to hear yours, and I'd love to have a conversation about it. Right?
Yeah, not even curious, but I need to know what yours are, and I need to know honestly too. Mm-hmm. And then if you find that you're not on the same page, then you need to be realistic. Is this an appropriate connection for me?
Totally. Some people are and have very successful polyamorous or open relationships, and for some people that's just not them, and it's okay for one to be you and one to be not you. I think it's really just about communicating that, and for me it would be about saying this is my preference, and if it's not yours, like I 100% honor that, and I don't think it's necessarily going to work, right? And better that I know that at the onset.
Yes.
Rather than try to make something work or be something that I'm not. I think it goes both ways.
Yeah. So we're going to be okay.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that we're going to be making up a page of references, follow-up references, some of the things that we've talked about here, and that
I'm also going to throw some links that Jessica sent me earlier into the chat.
Oh yeah, okay. We'll put them in the chat, and I think we'll also put them on a resource page that will be posted on the CAPS website by next week.
Yeah, I think so. For sure. And if you send a chat or Q&A, only Jessica and I can see it, and we won't say your name, but any folks out there with any questions or things that you would like to hear from us before we end this little meeting here?
So we'll just take a few minutes because I know it takes time to type.
Right. And I also just want to say that I found all of these articles and then the last couple of videos to be really fun to watch. They may or may not resonate with you, but they're just all very different perspectives of long distance relationships.
Yeah, there's some good stuff there.
Yeah. The last one does contain some casual profanity. I personally found it very insightful and fun to watch.
Yeah.
And of course, Michelle Obama. Who doesn't love Michelle Obama?
Really?
All right.
So let's maybe just hang out for another minute or two because people may want to copy those links.
Yes.
And take them before we close out here.
Yes, please do. And remember, also, I'll type this into the chat. You can email us for a confidential consultation or services at CAPS. We provide these workshops. We also provide groups and individual counseling, case management, just giving resources, general support. Feel free to reach out to us. I'm going to send
there's the email right there.
All right, Jessica has it. UM-Dearborn CAPS at umich.edu.
All righty.
All right. Well, this has been a good conversation, important topic. Hopefully you guys found it helpful. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for joining us. And remember to see to what extent you can look at this time of distancing as a challenge and an opportunity to go deeper in some aspects of your relationship, even when other aspects of your relationship are not available right now.
I love that. That's a really great spirit to end on. All right. Thanks, Jessica, for your wisdom and for participation. Thank you, everybody who attended. We wish you a wonderful day.
Stay healthy.
Okay. Bye-bye.